Faith Forged in Fire, where we dive headfirst into the unique challenges and triumphs that comes with being a firefighter, all while exploring what it means to live out a biblical worldview. Join us as we find hope, perseverance, and faith in the midst of the heat and chaos. Welcome to the podcast.
Okay. And with that, we're off. Welcome to the podcast.
Just warming up my vocal.
Thanks for being here. Hey, we got a great topic because the last time we talked about this, we had a great spirited conversation.
Yes,
and I'm going to guess that we're not going to do that today, but you never know. We didn't intend to do that last time. We just had fun.
You never know.
So 2 episodes ago, we were talking about this topic, and I believe it was listener submitted, was it not? But I think
it was, wasn't it?
Was that Courtney's,
yes, originally it was listener submitted.
That
it was
producer Courtney's?
Producer Courtney, she did a great job.
Yeah.
How do we find rest in a demanding career is kind of what we were talking about.
It depends on how committed you are.
And it depends on where even if we answered that question.
And go.
And I said this in the last podcast, but if you were not in the last podcast, Steve, first I'll say, if you did not listen two episodes ago, you might want to go back and listen to that. It is a little bit longer one, but go back and listen to that one. It was a good one. It was a fun one. But Steve kept saying to Jake and I think we need another episode. I think we need a 2. And Jake and I are like, no, we're going to settle this
shut
right
up,
now.
Steve.
Yeah,
You're sitting in the corner.
You're interrupting our conversation.
Okay. Yeah, they told me, and I'm like, okay, whatever you want. And so, I had.
So,
okay, guys.
And I think part of it was Jake and I both knew, but there was no point in we were just having fun. And it wasn't going to happen. You couldn't come back and have the same energy.
No,
because that just kind of happened.
Oh man!
And it was one of those nights. It was kind of running late.
Yeah,
and I think it was just kind of like we were kind of over. We were ready to go home. And so it was just like
overstimulated.
I am just gonna argue for the sake of arguing.
Yeah, man. And I'm one of those too.
Did you guys argue?
Yeah,
it was fun.
The funny part was, we were ready to go home, and we just wouldn't quit.
But then we wouldn't quit. Yeah. At that point, it became the principle of the matter of, well, no, you're wrong, and it was like, well, no, you're wrong, and then we were both done, and we were like, I don't know who was right about it.
I don't even know if I believe what I was saying. I was just going to argue against whatever Jake was saying.
I was just going to argue against whatever Josh was saying.
And what was funny about it, I'm like, so why don't we guys do a part? It'd be great. And you're like, no, Steve, we're not doing a part 2. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry.
Hey, welcome to part 2. If you haven't already, go to Red Flannel Coffee Co. Get yourself coffee. Good morning. I hope you're enjoying your nice.
Yeah.
Well, probably not brisk morning, but probably warm morning. I'm not sure what the weather's supposed to be like.
Well, make some iced coffee then if you need to.
Oh, there you go. Some cold brew.
So,
good stuff.
Anyway, after saying, no, Steve, we're not doing another episode, I got home, and I wasn't home 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, and I saw this video, and I went, oh, we've got to do another episode. We got to do a part 2 because this adds a whole nother layer to it.
To be fair, Josh just wanted to disagree with Steve.
Yeah.
He wanted to do this all along. He was just like, no.
I text Jake. I'm like, I think we're going to do it. He's like, yeah, we're in. It's not because it's Steve's idea. It's because it's our idea.
It was just, we had to agree on something.
See, Steve, we can't agree.
I know.
It was funny, 20 minutes or so after the show where we laughed about it and we're like,
oh, man.
That was fun. We got to do that again sometime.
That was great.
So let us know in the comments. If you like Jake and I arguing, let us know.
Let us know.
Trust me, we can argue about anything.
That's right.
Absolutely anything.
That'll be a monthly thing we do here is we'll have a show where these guys just argue with each other like, here we go again,
We'll call it the J&J show.
There we go.
Well, and we'll have a contest. Guess which episode that these guys argue this month.
Yeah, when I put out the monthly episode topic, your vote.
Which one is the one that these guys
Maybe it'll turn into like WWE where we'll just look at the votes and be like, everybody wants us to argue here, so we're going to argue here.
Oh, that's funny.
All right. Anyways, so to this point of taking time off, I do have a kind of a specific direction here because when I heard this, I had several thoughts. And it's interesting we talk about arguing, right?
I'm ready to argue against all of them.
Because my problem is I agree in a lot of ways and then I disagree in a lot of ways.
Sure.
So whichever side you want to take, I'll just take the other side, Jake.
I disagree. I say we take the same side.
All right, then I'm man, I didn't want to be the guy on the agreeing side. I got all my notes
We need
on
to
this.
do a part three. Part three.
You know what?
No, Steve, we're
I
not.
disagree.
All right, so here's what we're going to do to get this thing kicked off.
All right.
I'm going to give you guys all a chance to listen. It's super short. Just a clip from this guy's speech. Some of you may have heard of him. His name is Travis. I think it's Howes is how you say it. I see him all over like Instagram or TikTok on shorts, just some of the clips from his speeches. He has been a Marine, a law enforcement officer, and a firefighter. I see a lot of his speeches coming from that side of, especially the firefighter side of things. And he has a lot of good things to say. And what he says here, I don't think is wrong in and of itself. There's, like I said, there's some things I very much agree with, but we'll talk about it. We'll talk it through and see what you guys think as well. So here goes. Hopefully this
up,
works.
Listen up.
We all know people that have this mindset. Hey, my off time is my what? That's my off time. Don't bother me. Your off time is their time too if you're in a leadership position. And if you can't handle that, pass the torch. Oof. Pass the torch. With greater power comes greater what? Responsibility. If you can't handle that, give it to someone that can. I'm passionate about this because of this right here. When you're on your off time, your crew is on their off time. When's the most dangerous time for a first responder? They're off time. And if you're not accessible, you're failing them.
So
you're making a conscious decision to fail your people, and that's unacceptable.
That dude's gonna scream at you. If
I don't know if I want to argue with him. I'll argue with you. I'm not arguing with him.
Yeah, that's next level.
So let's break that down a little bit. Sure. We had a whole our point of our episode, whether we hit it or not, was talking about just finding time on our own. Not even talking about the leadership side of things, but just on our own.
Yeah.
Finding those times where we can step away, recharge, be with our family, that kind of thing. And now he comes along and says, you don't get that time if you're a leader.
Right. That's kind of where we left off was, Rich made a good point, and that's, I think where I was going to circle back around to was it went from how do we find rest to how dare we find rest?
Yeah, that's kind of,
that was full circle of, wow, I'm perplexed. Now where do we go with this? But that's kind of what he's saying, right? Is how do we find rest? But then if you're in a leadership position, how do you find rest?
And he's not wrong. A first responder's worst time is their downtime.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So the title of this is Leaders Must Do This One Thing Before Taking Time Off. So here's kind of what I would propose on that. And we can talk this through. But my thought about it is just kind of the biblical principle that we see of pouring into the next generation. And 2 Timothy 2:2, Paul tells Timothy, so Paul, as a church planter or a pastor, says to Timothy, who is a young pastor that Paul has trained, and he says, what you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. He's telling Timothy, go find the next generation and train them. So the idea is, the biblical principle is that we don't do this on an island. Yes, with leadership, with great privilege. What did he say? It's the Spider-Man thing, right? With great privilege comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
But I think there's a side of that responsibility we miss, even as pastors, is it's our responsibility to train up a team, train up the next person, and that's kind of what part of my thought was. I totally agree with him. We do need to be accessible. And as a pastor, even when I go on vacation, I still get phone calls. I still get texts.
Sure. Oh, sure.
And I will do my best to be as accessible as possible. But there does come that time where you just have to be like, no, because it's not fair to my family. Now in this, what he's talking about, we've got to come up with, so my point would be, I don't disagree with him other than I think there's a way we should be building a culture within our team that, as the leader, if you're not the accessible one, then it can be passed on to the next one. right? And it might be, as a leader, I got to answer the phone the first time because we all know how that works. If you're having a bad day, Jake,
Right.
and you call because you're reaching out for help and I don't answer, chances are you're not calling Steve. You're just done, right?
I'm just kidding,
No,
Steve,
I
I'm
don't.
sorry.
I don't mean it that way, right? Right.
No,
We're not
I know what you
busting
mean.
on Steve,
No,
right?
no, I know. I'm just joking.
But just
No, you're right. You're right,
You're just
though.
like, no, I'm done. It took
Right.
so much to reach out the first time,
right.
that you're done. So I think there's some of that principle is, yeah, even if I'm on vacation with my family, if I'm whatever, I need to be able to be accessible
Right.
enough to go, okay, I've heard you. Look, man, I'm on vacation. I definitely want you to have help, but I'm gonna call Steve, right?
Right,
and we've
right.
already built this culture where
Yeah.
he and Steve were a crew, so we're
Yeah.
in this together. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think that's a great foundation to lay with any team, whether it's in the fire service or police, EMS, the corporate world. I mean, that's kind of how it is in the corporate world for me, at least in a leadership position. I've got a couple of people that can be relied on in my absence, but it's the same thing. I'm always going to answer my phone or answer a message or whatever, but it may be, hey, I can't help with that right now, but go to so-and-so and
Right.
this
Yeah.
person can help you with that. And I think, yeah, like you said, that's a culture that needs to be built, but it needs to be built and it needs to be a standard. It needs to be understood by everybody on the team.
Right.
It can't be, because that's when you open the door for people thinking that, you're playing favorites, that so-and-so gets special treatment and you can't have that. But no, I absolutely, I totally agree with you. Sorry guys, I can't argue with that. That's
If they were
not
expecting
flawed
an
logic.
argument.
So yeah, I think that's certainly something that should be built in every team.
I was thinking as you were talking, I can't remember the guy's name now. You guys would probably know it if I said it. But I was listening to him, and he said that he had read this study. I think it was something like 8 minutes. If somebody's in a bad spot within like 8 minutes of a conversation, like that's what it takes to at least encourage somebody enough to get them out of that bad spot and in a place where you can really start talking to them, right?
Yeah.
It was something like that. So the point of my illustration is this: what they started doing is like he realized that they would say something like, "Well, I reached out, but you weren't there," and he'd realize, okay, yeah, they sent a text, but he thought they just wanted to get together or they wanted to.
Sure.
So they kind of came up with this code word instead of saying, "Hey, man, I'm in a bad spot," which is hard for anybody to
Yeah.
say. They would just shoot a text and be like, "Hey, do you have 8 minutes?"
Oh yeah.
And that was the cue, like, I need to call this guy.
Yeah.
Because especially in a situation like he's talking about, maybe you are on vacation with your family and Steve just wants to tell me something and he calls. And so maybe I don't answer because I'm like, no, I want to talk to Steve, but I'm determined I'm going to spend this time with my family. Right. Well, instead, a text from Steve that says, "Hey, do you have 8 minutes?" And I go, "Hey, I need to take this. I need to call Steve like now. Just give me a few minutes." Right. So sometimes it might even be that. I just think it's important. We are not designed to carry our own weight and everybody else's weight 24/7. I don't believe God designed us that way. No. We have to have that time where we can get away, where we can rely on him. And I think it's just, when we talk about this idea of rest in a demanding job, we absolutely just have to do that. Yeah. And it's the same for me as a pastor. I found that like getting away far enough away that there's nothing I can do about it if I wanted to.
Right.
That's healthy because I'm forced to call somebody else and say, "Hey, so-and-so's needs help with this, or so-and-so's struggling with this. Can you, I'm out of town. Can you go?"
Well,
take care of that.
And I think like last week, really what we were talking about was just the balance, right? And I think that's what it kind of was, is even though that this is a demanding career in the sense it's public safety and there is an obligation, but we were talking about that as a human, there's got to be that point where we have to have some kind of balance. Because first off, it's for us, right? Like if we're going 24/7 and never resting, I mean, like we talked about last week, the Lord rested on the seventh day. I mean, he's trying to communicate that as humans, we have to have rest of some kind. Yeah. Where then again, comes into your point, we have to have and build up other leaders. And so you say, listen, I got to get away a little bit. Just I need it right now because not only are you not good for yourself, you're not good for that guy that calls that needs the 8 minutes, right? Because you're just fried, right? Your family, you're not good for the family. You're not good for anybody, and that just breeds. That just keeps breeding. Getting to a point where now it just becomes detrimental, right, for everybody involved. So I think that's where we were going at, is just to be able to say it. There's got to be a point where I got to turn it off a little bit when I know especially when my body's telling me it's time to turn it off. You get those warning signs, right?
Yeah.
Where you're getting irritable, you're getting whatever, and it's like you got to walk away. And a good leader recognizes that in other people, right? Where you're going, I got to get this guy. He's got to get. You got to go.
He needs to take a break.
Yeah, you got to take. You got to take 5 here, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
So I think that's really where it kind of came to last week, is we were really talking about just trying to have that balance in your life and realize that, because in all reality, and I was talking, my conversation I was having earlier that I told you about when I came in today, Rich, PJ. So what I do, Rich. Sorry, Rich. So when I was talking about Josh, it was. I know. Would it be funny if he started talking?
He's taking a break.
If he starts talking, I'm out of here.
He's resting. Oh yeah, you and me
We talked about fear last week. That's real fear.
The head turns. The head turns. So no, but like we were talking about when I got here, it's like the fire service and public safety, and it's an incredible job. But we got to remember too that there is that level where it's a job, right? Like there are other things in our life that are important, and the fire job or the police job is a job, and there's a time and place for that to be a job, but there's also a time and place to say I got to put the job to the side for other things as well, and I can't have the job be a 24/7 thing where it just overruns my life. So that's where Well,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I just in our conversation 2 weeks ago when we were talking about this, right, we hit that, and that's the thing. So then when now all of a sudden he brings the people side of it. It's much more cut and dry to me to just be able to say, whether it's easy or not, but it's cut and dry to say no. At some point, I just got to say no to the job, even if I don't want to.
Right.
But when it's people and potentially somebody's life at stake,
sure.
Yeah.
That's what. Then when I heard that, I'm like, that's what makes it hard.
Yeah.
But here's something as well. So last week we talked about just losing a firefighter here in our community, and when that happened, I got a phone call from some people, and they were right in the middle of it, and they were looking for help from a chaplain.
Yeah.
Right. So I get this phone call, and in any other moment, I would have been in. I would have been there immediately. I'm on my way. Whatever you need. I happen to be out of town with my family, and this was one of those planned times to be away, to be with my family.
Yep.
There was literally nothing I could do because they wanted help then.
Right.
Because this is now. We just found out
you
we
weren't just out of town. Like, you were out of state.
I was out of state.
There was no. This isn't just like being in the next town over. Like,
give me 20 minutes kind of thing.
You were hours and hours away. Yeah.
And still had more time on the trip, all of that. Right. And it did cross my mind. Do I need to try to make it back? And then I realized, like, no, sometimes we have to be okay with letting somebody else pick up that mantle.
Right.
And unfortunately, in that moment, I didn't even have you need to call this person. It was literally like, I'm sorry. Yeah, this person or this person might, but you're going to have to figure that out. I wish I could even help you with that. And I felt bad. I mean, you feel like you've let them down, but we have to be okay even in those moments of going, there's nothing I can do as much as I want to.
Well, and you never know when God's going to use those other people in that situation. There may have been a time that it happened at, or there may have been a reason that it happened at that time when you were gone.
I couldn't do it. Yes.
Yeah. So God could have used somebody else.
Right.
Yes.
So, or that God could have worked through somebody in some way. And we don't know that. And that's where we just have to rely on our faith and rely on God that's
He's working it out.
He's working it out. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We can't be the fix of everything. We talked about this a few episodes back about that being in us as firefighters, right?
Yeah.
We want to be the fix all, and it's so hard to say no.
Right.
But when we say, remember we said this, we said if you say yes to something, you're still saying no. You're just saying no to something else, and you might not know what that something else is. In this case, if I'd have said yes, I'd have been saying no to another very important thing, which was my family. And it wasn't just my family, but a trip we had planned for a long time, like devastating for my kids kind of thing.
yeah.
They're very understanding on a lot of things, and that would have probably not been one of them.
And that would have been tough because they know that that's your designated time that you are being intentional
With them. Yeah.
And then to just
Right.
kind of break that, like there has to be boundaries. There has to
Exactly.
be boundaries.
Right.
It's, you know,
And it again, I think it was good that I was so far away that I couldn't
yeah,
say, okay, guys, I'm sorry, I've got to go do this.
that temptation isn't there to say,
Right.
well, maybe this time I can do it.
I was literally forced to just trust that God was going to your point, put somebody else in there.
Oh, that would be a
take
good
care of it.
topic.
You know-
Just of how do we trust God when we want to be the fixer of everything?
Yeah.
You know, because that, like you said, you were forced in a position to trust God because you were so far away. There would have been no time to get back.
There was no way.
But yeah, to be put in a position where you have to trust that God is working it out when you want to be there and you want to fix it. So that's I don't know, maybe we'll have to.
Yeah,
Courtney,
so how-
Courtney,
Yeah, I think Courtney, we
Yeah,
need your
write
help.
something up. Put that podcast@gmail.com. Steve will buy you a bag of coffee.
My card's on file. That's okay. My card's on file. But no, I mean, and I was thinking about, as you were talking, I was thinking about and this is, we're talking about something specific in the pastoral side of things, and when emergencies arise, and I'm thinking, and you probably know this, obviously off the top of your head, but what are the statistics of pastors that say, this is too much of a career. This is too demanding for me. Like,
Yeah.
like I can't be that guy.
Yeah, on the
24/7.
pastoral
And I don't-
side, yep.
And I have no one else to step up where I cannot, this is like, I'm done with this. Like, I'm going to go and just go to what I was doing before I was a pastor or whatever and be done. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of pastors that walk away, right?
They do. But see that, and that's where, when I listen to this, that's why I thought the way I thought, because there are so many pastors that walk away for several reasons. There's several things tied into that. And some of it is they don't even take the time to train some people.
Right.
They don't create that culture, because often the culture is everything that happens we call pastor, and pastor has to be the one to fix it all. Instead of understanding that the Bible talks about the church as a body all functioning together.
Yes.
And the pastor is the one that trains and equips the church to be the church.
You took my question away. That was going to lead into that. But now keep going. You got that. I was just going to say, is the pastor the leader of the church, or is the pastor part of the body of the church?
At least part of the body.
Exactly, but that's how it's got to be, and that's how God called the church, and so it's got to be. It can't just be, like you said, the one person that everybody calls for every single thing. We all need, and unpopular opinion, maybe, not that I care, but that's part of what fellowship is for.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's staying
Yes.
connected together, and it's communicating with each other, holding each other accountable, but at the same time stepping up for one another. And
Yes.
and
Carry
that's
one
where
another's burdens.
Exactly. That's where that happens. That is
Yep.
where that is lived out.
And usually you can do it better than I can, because I physically can't know everybody in my
Right.
congregation at that level. But maybe Jake and Steve have built this bond that's tighter than I have with either one. So it's just more natural even. And you just have to step up. And that's what I was thinking about when he said this, even about the crew. Like, I feel like what we do in church is we put too much expectation. It's just almost easier to just put it on the pastor. And as the pastor, there's almost this like, well, I don't want to give it to somebody else because I need to be needed, instead of realizing I know what I need to do is train my people. And same here. If you're an officer, yes, you ultimately still have a responsibility, but train people and create that culture, because maybe the guys on your crew, there's a couple guys that get along better than you do with some of them.
Yeah,
and they're more natural to be a part of that.
Not only that, but there's also, and you talk about the body of Christ, is that God uses us with certain people that we can relate to, but we can't relate to other people. So someone else can. So the thing is we all have a gift with specific individuals where, like I said, where I may be able to use with one person where someone else can't, but then at the same time, vice versa. Mm-hmm. I'm the later guy,
you're saying
right?
that you have gifts that will resonate with some people than others.
Where someone else is like much better equipped with this individual because
Right.
they connect together.
Right.
And the same thing in a firehouse. Now what I was thinking about though, as you were talking about this, now here's the caveat we have. How many of those guys cannot relinquish power to anybody else
Well,
because
that's
they
a
want to keep
struggle,
it,
right?
I'll tell you
Yeah.
that-
and they keep it for themselves, right?
But you know what? I will tell you, and I've been in leadership for quite a while. That is one of the number one marks of a bad leader, that they have to control
everything. Yeah.
That's normally a personality thing.
Sure.
And man, I was having some good talks about leadership lately too. So this is all fresh on my mind. When it comes to leadership, I truly believe that it begins with the person and their personality and
Yes.
who they are. There is an argument to be made that good leaders are born, not made. And I lean that way. The more I'm in leadership and the more that I learn about leadership and the more that I train in leadership, a good leader needs to be a good person. Number one, that's got to be the first thing. They have to be a people person. They have to be a good person to others. And what that means is training your team, not just training your team. That means giving the tools and the skills and the resources for your team to be as successful as they can possibly be.
Equip them, literally what Ephesians
Equip them.
says.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you have to equip them to the best of your ability so that they can work to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you are building up that next level of leader, and whether they even get into leadership or not, you're going to make sure that they are successful so that
Right.
if that opportunity comes, they can step into it and they will be successful in it.
Well,
but what it also allows you to do is step away and say, hey, go to so-and-so. I know they can handle this.
Well, you're empowering them.
You're empowering them.
You're
Yeah,
empowering
absolutely.
them
When you hold that all, and oh man, I'll tell you, I've worked for somebody like that.
Yeah, I have too, and it's it takes the wind out of you, and you just don't
really
really want to
does,
go to
yeah.
work anymore. On the other side of that, probably the best boss I ever had was before I came to be the pastor full time. So I was a pastor.
So you're saying before God
I
was
was
your boss?
I was associate. Ha ha. Yeah, I hear that all the time. I was an associate. Yeah, God.
Was that another one?
Way to go. He's trying to start a fight.
Is that
You
on the
just
list?
said God is not the best boss you've ever had.
Is that on
I'm
the
not
list?
buying that one. I don't have the energy. It's too hot to fight tonight.
Oh, here we go.
it was on the list.
You're getting them going though.
It was on the list. I know it was too easy. It was low hanging fruit. I'm sorry, Josh.
You're fine. Yeah. So, anyways, he was that way. Like he would teach me and train me even to do his job.
Yeah.
Because he wanted a break. He didn't have anybody that could do it, to the point where I would sometimes just tell you, go home. You've been here early. You've been here late several nights or whatever. Go home. I'll take it.
Yeah.
But one of the things that was kind of funny is when I came to tell him, because I gave him like a month's notice that I was leaving. And when I told him that I was leaving, you can see him kind of deflate a little bit, like, oh no, because we had a really good working relationship. We had a lot of good things going. So it was him and then me and then everybody else in the warehouse.
Yeah.
And he said, man, he says, in this month before you leave, you're going to have to write out everything you do. He said, 'cause I have no idea what you do.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then he goes, oh, wait, that sounded bad. Like, not like, oh, I don't even know what you do around here.
Hey,
He
you know
said,
what, though?
He said, you do all this stuff and you just do it.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what you do, how you get it done. As in, because what happened was he was the kind of guy that was like, here's the goal. And
Right.
here's what I have to focus on. So so I could just go do whatever I needed to do
Yeah.
to accomplish. And he was
man.
such a guy where I wanted to make him look good because I enjoyed working. So I
he
would do
empowered
my
you. Yeah,
best
yeah.
to try to, so we just look good as a team, right? That's what I wanted.
100% the guy that I want to work for.
Yeah.
100%. So
And it was hard. I didn't get paid as well there as I could have some other places, but I didn't want to leave because of him.
Yeah.
a good leader will make you want to be there,
Yeah.
regardless of other circumstances, and that sounds like an incredible leader. Another great leader that I know once told me that the best widget maker doesn't always make the best leader of widget makers, right? And so this is going back to what you just said about you're going to have to write down everything you do because I don't know what you do, but that's great because and the thing is it's the same way with myself and my employees. I don't necessarily know how they get the job done, but I empower them in order to
Right.
get the job done. I give them whatever tools and resources they need so that they have, or training so that they have the skill to do it. But at my level, I don't need to know how they're doing it.
Right.
Unless time comes that I need to know how, then I'm going to ask them.
Right.
But as long as
But if we're meeting the vision and the goal, that's all that matters.
Then that's all that matters. They're going to look good. I'm going to look good.
Yep.
They are going to feel appreciated because I empower them to do work autonomously without me having to
Right.
look over them and say, you're doing that wrong, you're doing that wrong, you're doing that wrong. Just because I know how to do it, again, just because a widget maker knows how to make widgets and they're good at it, doesn't mean that they're a good leader of other widget makers. It just means that they know how to make them really well. And I use that as just a very general term,
Right.
and that's not even my term. It's another leader who I have a lot of respect for. But it's so true, because just because you know how to do the job doesn't mean you know how to lead people. That comes from the heart. That's a heart thing. That's a personal thing. And so that's, again, where I go back to a good leader starts with a good person.
But if you lead that way, then you can step away and say, take that vacation, take that time away.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't need to be there. I had somebody tell me one time, like, and he kind of laughed about it after he said it. He said, you know, Pastor, with what we have going here, we don't even miss you when you're gone.
Yeah.
And he meant it as a compliment.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he said, I mean, of course we miss, you're not preaching or somebody
Yeah.
else is, but because of the things, and not that we're perfect, we have things we need to improve on and get better
Yeah.
at. But if I'm gone, church just keeps going.
Yeah.
As it should.
Because I am not trying to do it all myself. I've never, for one thing, it's not my church, so it's God's. So I want to train and equip others to do it. But I'm just the type. Why would I want to carry all that? Why do I want to wear that many hats? I'm busy enough,
Right.
and even when I'm letting other people do their things, I still feel like I'm crazy busy. So why would I not want to do it in such a way that I can step away and not feel like everything's going to fall apart and I'm going to come back to a mess?
Yeah.
And I think, again, when I hear him say, you always have to be accessible, I get it. I see that side of things. But, man, why don't we train people?
But if you're a good leader,
To step into that.
you will have a system in place. And really, you know, I'm not going to speak for the military because I never served, but in a similar sense, they have these systems in place, like fail safes, right? Where if this goes wrong, you've got this, and if this goes wrong, you've got this, and it's just a tiered system to prevent failure, right? In the same way, that's how you should be as a leader. If something happens to you, you go out and you get hit by a bus.
Well, that's a whole nother
that
thing
next
there.
person
Yeah.
in line should
Right.
be able to step
Sure.
up.
Right.
Sure.
Okay. Steve, I know you're a huge Detroit Lions fan, so this is for you. Dan Campbell's thing was head coach of the Lions. In case you're not from Michigan, you ought to be a Lions fan anyway. Dan Campbell
Hey,
said,
everybody knows about the Lions now. We're actually
Yeah, I know,
winning.
right? We're doing good.
But we don't want bandwagon fans.
He
We
had
don't have any room.
next level or next man up.
Mm-hmm.
Next man up. That was because all of these guys kept getting injured.
Yep.
And they're like, well, what are you going to do? And he's like, what do you mean what I'm going to do? It's going to be next man up.
Mm-hmm.
You should be trained for this.
Right.
You should be ready to go and step into that position. And that's how a leader should be with whether it's a football team, a fire crew, a church, it doesn't matter. Or
Right.
in the corporate world, it should be that next man up mentality.
So here's a question. We're talking about this is derailing again.
I know. Let's
Well, I was
argue.
gonna
But
say,
not
we're
in a bad
yeah,
way.
in a bad way,
But
yeah.
this
Let's
is part
argue.
of it. This is part of it, though. I'm going to ask this question for those who are here listening, who are a part of a church. What happens when your pastor's gone? What if you say next man up? What if something happens to your pastor today? What's going to happen to your church? We should be, and this ties into that, being able to remove yourself and take a break. As pastors, even, we should be training the next guy.
Yeah.
If something happened to me today, and this is all by God's grace, things would be different only because our associate pastor has a different personality than he's different than me, right? So there's going to be things that are different, but the overall vision and the overall direction of the church, not going to miss a beat. And preaching quality, not probably better than mine, right? He's going to step in and he's going to go. And that's what we've been training for. I don't know when that time comes,
Sure.
but we believe that Scripture says it's my responsibility to train up the next generation.
Yeah.
And he's thinking the same thing. Then who's going to follow me? And he's starting to process that.
Yeah.
So that the goal would be that church never misses a beat. Well, if that's the case, if I truly believe that right now, if I'm not here anymore, church doesn't miss a beat, then why can't I step away and take that time to get a break?
It should be seamless.
Right. Then then that means we're not going to miss a beat for a week.
Right.
Right.
I remember growing up in a little white church, and I mean, it was little, and it was, we had this, the pastor was older. He was pretty close to retirement. And I remember when he would go on vacation, it was just one of the, I don't even remember what we called it. I don't think we called them deacons or elders, but it was essentially that, right? It was the mature Christians from another podcast for another episode, right? Usually somebody who led, Bible studies and Sunday schools and stuff like that would just step in and preach that Sunday. You don't have to have a degree or go through seminary.
Right.
You can continue what we were just discussing, and that's how it should be. And I always thought that was kind of cool. For us, it was kind of special as kids, at least, because it's like, oh yeah, that's my Sunday school teacher, up there. And
right.
So it's like, instead of going to normal Sunday school, it was like in the big, in the sanctuary. So that was always pretty cool. But that's how it should be, and that's a lot easier in a smaller church like that. You have to rely on each other. I mean, there were maybe 150 of us in that church, so you had to rely on everybody to keep everything running, whether it was, the sermon or whether it was the HVAC. It didn't matter. I mean, you relied on each other. We were a community.
But it comes back to that being intentional and putting the time and the effort in, because I've got guys now. I've got a team of guys that we just call it a leadership class. And this fall, when we come back to leadership class, that's exactly the thing we're going to work on. I'm going to have them preaching. The goal is to have several guys that can step in and preach at any moment if needed. It's not my church, right? And we all need to be able to have that time that we step away, that we get a little break, that we
certainly.
That we
and the
breathe.
church isn't the building, it's the people. That's what we're called.
And there's
here to
so
be.
much of that ties into. You say, well, this is supposed to be a firefighter podcast, and you guys are talking about church. Well, it all ties. It's very, very similar.
The fire department's not the building; it's the people.
Exactly.
There. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Well,
the
and
corporation is not the building. It's the people who
and that's
make
where
it.
the struggle came in. It's easy to say no to a job. It's easier to say no to showing up to something. Because it's a job, it's a lot harder to say no when it's the people in the job that's asking you to show.
Yeah. I will say one of the coolest things as a leader that I experienced was with one of my employees, and they came to me asking a question. Oh, there goes our camera. Came to me asking me a question about something, and I was like, "Okay, what do you need?" And they were like, "Well, what do you think about this?" I'm like, I trust your opinion on it. You know what you're doing. And they were so taken aback, like, well, no one's ever let me do that before. I'm like, well, get used to it. And it was cool to me in that moment of like, yeah, things are changing now, because you know what you're doing. You know how to do the job.
Right.
You've been doing the job and you do it very well. Why do you need me to make very simple decisions for you? You can do that yourself. You can work autonomously. You're not under my thumb. And just the appreciation that they had from that of like, oh, so you're not just going to be looking over my shoulder all day? No, I've got things to do. I don't have time to look over your shoulder. So yeah, it's amazing to see how well people will thrive, whether in the firehouse or the corporate world or in the church or wherever, when you give them the tools necessary to thrive.
Mm-hmm. All right, Steve, where can they email us?
Oh boy, what a great part!
@gmail.com.
Exactly. What a great part of the podcast
viruses.
Here. FFIF podcast @gmail.com. Any suggestions, thoughts, prayers, whatever you need, whatever you want to talk about, email us.
He must have got some malware. He's a little more specific now, not just
I know.
Just drop stuff in there.
Oh man, I'll tell you, some things I never live down. Also, too, hey, wherever you when you like to watch our podcast, wherever you like to watch podcasts,
Or listen
to podcasts too. It's a YouTube to watch.
This is my favorite part.
I know, this is
my favorite part of every episode.
Oh my goodness! You know, if you like a great coffee, go to Starbucks and.
So if you're listening now, we have an opening on Faith Forged in Fire. Email us at ffifpodcast@gmail.com.
Send your resume.
Send your resume. We're going to have Steve looking them over. Next man up.
Oh, that was funny.
Well, Steve's dying right now, so I'm going to tell you to go to redflannelcoffeeco.com, use PJ30, get 30% off your coffee. Check out all the other cool stuff. We got shirts that you could probably see earlier before the camera died, and hats that you could probably see before the camera died. And we've got Faith Forged Fire stuff.
Yeah, check out the Faith Forged Fire
PJ's
stuff.
wearing one of the hats.
I have more stickers in the queue, like ready to go too. We just don't have the money, so you got to buy more stuff. So you got the money.
Help us out, please. We're like starving
I do.
students.
I
over here,
have
you know?
several stickers, like
Oh, send
cool
stuff to
stickers designed.
What?
Oh, what?
Yeah, we just haven't had the money to hit up our
Email
help
sticker
to me at
company.
Help us out. Help us out.
No,
And
email
then
it
when
to me. That'd be
Steve's
pretty
like,
cool,
"Hey, look at these," I'll be like, "I don't know. They send them to you. You take care of it."
Yeah.
Aren't we just supposed to be delegating stuff so we can?
We are.
It's going to be Steve. You
That's
deal
how-
with it. I'm taking a break.
Yeah,
There we go, Steve. Well, hey, thank you so much. Come back for another episode next week where we're going to go a listener submitted idea.
Oh,
Ooh, so
yes.
thank you so much.
I missed out. I was
You missed out.
distracted.
Hey, thank you so much and have a great
Oh,
week.
it's not even on. I'm
Yeah,
waiting at the
next week.
camera.
I'm looking at my phone.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.